Welcome, glad you're here. I'm Jen Lepore, Marketing Team Coordinator at Custom Processing Services, and today, Vice President of Business Development, Albert Medoro, is stopping by to talk a little bit about some ongoing issues and opportunities in supply chain management and how manufacturers can gain efficiencies by partnering with the right tool processor. So, supply chain management has always been something that manufacturers contend with. But the upheaval during the 2020 global pandemic triggered close scrutiny of those so-called best practices. Now, not surprisingly, many of those practices were lacking, and there's renewed focus on supply chain management. So, Albert, I realize mine was a pretty broad explanation, but can you give us a little bit of a better understanding on why supply chain management optimization is more critical than ever in today's markets?
Yeah, sure. So obviously you touched on what happened in 2021 and 2022. And right now, supply chain optimization has never really been more important. Companies are always dealing with issues, but now they're dealing with material shortages, shipping delays, labor constraints, and now especially with the new administration in office, we got different tariffs and trade policies that keep shifting. So it's just adding another layer of complexity, which isn't conducive and really just means higher costs and tougher decisions when it comes to sourcing and the logistical side of it. And at the same time, you got customer expectations that are really higher than ever at this point. We want fast deliveries, we want real-time tracking, shorter lead times, and just an overall better and more reliable service. So any single delay in that supply chain could really result in lost sales and just frustrated customers overall.
So what changes do you feel are the greatest importance?
Technology, I would say, is playing a huge role, and it's really kind of completely changing the way companies are managing the supply chains. We heard a lot of buzzworthy words like AI and real-time data, but it's not just buzzwords anymore when it comes to this issue. They really are making a huge impact. AI is making it very easy for companies to now start to source and select their suppliers based off of different algorithms and different characteristics that they can plug in, whether that's pricing, lead times, regions or different markets that the suppliers are located in. And it's making the supplier sourcing a much smarter sourcing decision than it's been in the past. You're not relying on limited data anymore. You're really relying on calculated algorithms that are allowing the procurement teams of these companies to focus a lot more on the strategic side as opposed to all the tactical research they would have previously done. In addition to the AI affecting just the sourcing of the suppliers, it's also really affecting the forecasting in a positive way. Forecasting has always been something that's been pretty difficult for the majority of companies to execute at a high level. And with AI, it's not necessarily going to give you 100% forecast, but it's has the ability to go in and really analyze your historical data and kind of plot it against different variables that have happened, weather changes, the political landscape changes that we see, and just really give these companies a better sense in when demand's going to spike, really based off of historical data.
So along those same lines, how does the general shift in supply chain management impact the supplier relationships manufacturers establish?
The manufacturers right now and companies, they're not looking just for vendors anymore, is what we're seeing. They really want partnerships with their suppliers, and they want their suppliers to be like a true extension of their company. Having that strong relationship really is the difference between having a very smooth operation and a lot of one-off delays that just throw off everybody's schedule. Trust and transparency right now are very key as we kind of navigate through this. Companies are needing suppliers to deliver on time, but they need to communicate clearly as well. And whether that communication is good or bad, it needs to happen timely so that suppliers can give their companies a chance to react to that. One of my colleagues here has always said that bad news doesn't get better with time. And we see it a lot. We see it a lot with even our companies that we're working with regards to supply chain delays that might be holding us up. The timeliness of that communication is so critical. And the last part that I think I'll touch on with that is the transparency is not just with communication, it's with other parts as well. It's with pricing and costing and true forecasting. That transparency is important because it could make or break the difference in the relationship. If we're looking at forecasts that are kind of pie in the sky forecasts to get to pricing levels, it's going to sour the relationship when the forecasts don't live up to those expectations. So it's give and take on both sides, but there's certainly a stronger push for that true partnership.
Interesting. So what type of efficiencies are gained when this big picture perspective is considered?
I think there's huge advantages to looking at it from a top level as opposed to simply looking at cost-cutting measures. Costs are obviously very important, but there are other items that are just as important, if not more important. Shorter lead times provide the companies with a much more reliable sales avenue for their sales team to go out and sell. It reduced the risk. And the greater flexibility that you can have within a supplier sometimes outweighs any cost savings that you might be getting at a different supplier. So I don't want to discount, obviously, no pun intended, on the cost savings, but there are definitely other areas that could probably provide a better advantage than just a price point.
So let's talk more specifically about tool processors and how their experience and capabilities can help manufacturers with supply chain optimization. So how would you say outsourcing to a toll processor shorten lead times and otherwise benefit manufacturers?
The role of the toll processor really is to take on tougher, more specialized, call it time-consuming production processes that are out of scope or out of norm for manufacturing companies. So when a toll processor is able to run a specialty product and run it with a piece of equipment that has other specialty products to run on it, it really helps with the overall capacity and usage of both facilities, right? You're cutting down setup time and you're cutting down manufacturing inefficiencies at the company by allowing them to continue to run what they do well, right? What their bread and butter is, where their high margins are, and having that flexibility from a toll processing perspective not only gives you the equipment capability, but it gives you another network of logistics and contacts and resources that you can leverage and free up your internal admin time. So there's multiple benefits and certainly the ability to shorten lead times.
So that kind of goes into my next question for you. How do you think a toll processor's flexibility in handling demand and scale-ups or product modifications can give manufacturers a competitive advantage?
Yeah, it's extremely important because we all know market shifts, demand fluctuates, and new products, new specifications are always in the works. And that doesn't necessarily coincide well with a large manufacturing facility. So you really need that toll processing leg to come in and be able to give you flexibility in changing your specification or scaling up when demand spikes quickly, but then very quickly being able to pivot back your potential labor. You need those opportunities to tweak formulas, tweak particle sizes, and you want to be able to use a toll processor to do that, so you don't necessarily get in a situation where you're now changing major protocols within your infrastructure and causing a ricochet effect for something that may not actually come to fruition. The toll processor has a much better opportunity to flex there.
Should a manufacturer be focused on the advanced equipment a toll processor has in-house when looking for a partner, you think?
Definitely, but equipment isn't the full scope of what they should be looking at, because you can get great equipment, but the technology really is only as good as the team that you have running it. So you got to look at a lot of different factors. You got to look at the diversity of your equipment, right? Go into your equipment portfolio and see, does this even make sense? You got to look at the different precision capabilities, because you don't want to over-engineer something and incur even more cost for potential capabilities that you don't need. And then there's always the maintenance and the upgrades of the equipment that a lot of times get overlooked when you're putting together a capital installation and commissioning project. So these are things that a toll processor has to be good at in order to be successful, because they are running multiple products, lots of different customers, and they got to be able to have a team that can adapt to those things on the fly.
So you touched about it a little bit. So what might the equipment tell manufacturers about the capabilities?
The equipment may tell manufacturers that they're going to be running into some roadblocks potentially, right? Whether that's not having capacity, right? Not having enough capacity, or you're missing a key processing step in order to continue processing that product. Or if it's just you need some additional expertise to run the equipment as efficiently as it was designed to. And again, instead of spending a fortune on new equipment or potentially hiring more staff, you can lean on the toll processor in those situations to fill those gaps. A good example is if suddenly, with everything that's going on with supply chain, a product that you've been getting for years is no longer available in the particle size that you were getting it. This is where you look for a toll processor to kind of step in and be able to adjust or process that material to get back to that particle size. And then it's a seamless transition. The ingredients line up, the recipes are good, and the market has no indication that there was a change. If you lack that internal equipment, you're going to definitely risk the commercialization of that product. So a good toll processor in that type of a situation is a great backup plan. And having somebody that you're already established with makes it even easier to flex and get something done quickly in those types of events.
So let's talk about CPS. So CPS has a great reputation for a breadth of expertise and services. So what makes these in-house capabilities particularly attractive to manufacturers looking to optimize their supply chain?
CPS handling everything that they handle in one general location and place is really the most attractive thing, in my opinion. We have multiple plants in Pennsylvania, but for the most part, everything's done under one umbrella. So that's micronization, that's blending, milling, repackaging, screening, and really we'll do more if we're asked to do so, right? We're willing to invest in new technologies if the opportunities present themselves. So having everything under that one umbrella, I think, really gives manufacturers the opportunity to not have to juggle so many different vendors. You're just keeping it under one roof essentially, and you're cutting out headaches for your admin team because you're coordinating with one place. You're removing shipping costs because everything is staying internal, and you're getting consistent product at each step, right? Instead of some inconsistencies that you might get if you got too many hands involved in it. An example would be instead of shipping a raw material that may potentially have a high moisture count to supplier A, you could send that to CPS, get the moisture count percentage down to where it needs to be. But then instead of shipping it to supplier B to either have it blended or extruded, you may keep that at CPS, right? And every time you do that, you're reducing the amount of logistical costs that are being added and administrative costs that are associated with that, because there could be two more steps after that. It could have to get dry ground to a particle that then needs to be wet milled down further to submicron particle sizes. So rather than incurring all those additional shipping costs, just send it to CPS. It really is a huge win-win for everybody. And in the event, shipping does happen to be part of the equation, we have an in-house transportation company, or our sister company, Birchmont Transport, that is owned and operated by the CPS umbrella and really has added a huge value add to the company. Some of our customers in the 19 to 20 years have saved literally millions of dollars by utilizing Birchmont Transport in some of the drop and hook situations that we've developed, and some of just the general flow of shipments and staging and loading. So we can kind of come at it at a bunch of different angles, which I think is a huge advantage for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does proficiency in micronization and blending and milling and the like signal to manufacturers about the level of trust that they can place in toll processors?
I mean, I think it shows that we know what we're doing, because we've been handling a lot of these complex materials for decades now. And that experience makes a huge difference when you're working with a toll processor, especially when you're looking to expand your product lines. In industries in pharma and food and some of these specialty chemicals, precision really is key. It isn't optional, and whether it's hitting tight specs or scaling up production from a feasibility pilot all the way to a production mill, every batch and every standard really needs to be hit. And again, we've been doing this for decades, so it's not a problem for us, and we've proven that. And we'll continue to do that, and we'll continue then to leverage those wins to help us invest in new technologies.
So we talked quite a bit about how a manufacturer benefits from knowing and leveraging toll processor fundamentals. So how about value adds? Can you talk a little bit about how CPS thinks about and approaches service to our customers in terms wider than production?
It's not just about running the materials through the machine. We have to help manufacturers optimize the entire operation. And what we pride ourselves on is our engineering team. Our technical sales group is tasked with fine-tuning processes before it hits full production. We'll certainly look to replicate a production or follow, some type of work instruction to get the base product made, but it's our job then to continue to optimize that and even change the process up, as long as we're still delivering a product that has great value. And this, again, is how we've built the company. It's not buying pieces of equipment and buying full systems and using them to the standard that they're set to. It's really utilizing a lot of different pieces of equipment in ways that kind of test the limits of the equipment, but deliver a much better product, a much more consistent product, but hopefully a product that is more efficient and cost effective for both sides.
So how do you think our engineering and lab testing supports supply chain optimization?
It is extremely risky if you're scaling up without proper testing. So if manufacturers jump right to full production without understanding the intricacies and the different variables that could be associated with that, whether that's material inconsistencies or equipment failures, then there's going to be some pretty costly surprises. And what we've done is we've built such a huge product library of different materials at different particle sizes and different moistures and just different characteristics that we've likely encountered the product in a production setting in one way or the other. It might not have been to the exact particle size, but it is the chemical, it is the same characteristics, and we understand, yes, it worked on a feasibility mill, but in order for us to get this to full production, we're going to need to modify this piece of ancillary equipment. And testing and lab support is certainly going to be the engine that kind of sparks that. You'll do that testing prior to even moving it to a production setting so that you're not wasting anybody's time, money, or resources in the event it's not going to work.
So, as we wrap up, I'm kind of curious about 3 or 4 takeaways you'd like our audience to remember and share about how an experienced supplier can complement a manufacturer's supply chain and what a manufacturer should look for in an ideal toll processor.
There's a lot of takeaways, but I'd say you want to get a good relationship with a toll processor to certainly be able to fill some of your critical gaps. If not for anything, have that extra capacity available to you, because what it will lead into is having a partner that can now provide you with that specialized expertise for the projects that you don't want to take in-house. So having that right partner to fill a critical gap sometimes is an entryway for a toll processor. Flexibility is huge, right? We talked about it a lot. The markets are always going to change, and a toll processor is going to be able to pivot and tweak products probably a little bit more quickly than just general manufacturers are, and still maintain margins. And when you're choosing one, you really need to focus on the expertise of the supplier and not just the equipment availability. Again, it's not always about having the right machine. It's about knowing how to use those machines and knowing how to use them in tandem to deliver a quality product, but at a good price.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and sharing your insights. Supply chain management is a topic that always makes for a great conversation, so I appreciate you sitting down with me. And thanks to you all for watching this month's Custom Processing Toll Manufacturing Minute. If you have any more questions about how CPS can streamline and optimize your supply chain, reach out to our team at any time. Also, be sure to subscribe to our CPS blog to rewatch and catch up on all of our podcasts and get the latest news and insights from our experts. Then we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.